I don't, you know, you ain't gonna get loads of these chances on these fish. Oh yeah, that's a lovely fish. Well, I didn't expect anything this big today, that's for sure. Okay, so welcome to my next bait hack. Today we're using worms. I'm going to talk to you about all the techniques, tips, how to find them, how to fish them, and what you can catch on them. We're at the wonderful Merrington Carp Fishery, and we've just had this beauty. Floatfish worm, absolutely magnificent. Towed me around the pool, light float gear, as good as it gets. So let's get her back, see if we can get something else. There we go. First one of the day. Okay, so today what I've been doing is I've taken worms and I've tried to catch as many different species as I can in one day. So, as I've said before, we're in mid-November. It's a real windy, challenging day. It's been warm, it's been quite mild, but you know, it's blustery and you know, it's been difficult at times, but it's been good fun. And we've caught a few different species now. We're on 9, so we're just trying here in the last half hour or so before it starts to go dark, trying to get there's some half decent bream in here, so we're trying to get a decent bream before we finish, and then that'd put us on the 10, but I think we're up against it a bit really. Anyway, so we've been to 4 different fisheries now. So we started off this morning at Merrington, had a great time at Merrington. Then the wind started to get up on us, we started to get things hard. We then went on to Rowley and Fenimore District Anglers Water. Nice little pool. We went there before and did some work on maggots. We caught crucian and tench there, which is just incredible at this time of year, you know, and a real bonus. And then we've been on the Ray Brook. Unfortunately, the 7 was far too high, so we couldn't get on there today. And now we're finishing off at the lovely Mousecroft Lake. So a tiny common, but you can clearly see there, blackhead worm. Third species, we've got a perch. Not a very big perch, quite a pale perch, but he's a perch. Worm and maggot combo. I'm netting it. I'm not even taking a chance. What is it now? It's a hybrid. Yeah. It is, isn't it? I think roach bream hybrid at that. I've never seen a tail on a roach. So we'll take it as a roach bream hybrid. Oh. I don't know, I think that's a good roach. That's a roach. Number 5. Not a brooch. That's a nice roach actually. Okay, so I'm just going to talk through the different types of worm, where I get them from and what I use them for. So the number 1, bought from the tackle shop, is Dendrobenas, brandling, or as I used to know them, red worms. Like I say, I get these from my local tackle shop. I like going in my local tackle shop because it lets me talk to people who talk to all the anglers, so it puts me in touch with what's going on, where's fishing, and you know, I mean, when you can go and buy, like I think this was half a kilo I bought here, relatively cheap and an absolute fantastic bait. But as worms go, probably my least favourite hook bait. So the next worm, we'll come back to what we do with those in a second. When we chop some up, because they're really good for that, really good for chopping and really good for ground baiting. So this is my next worm, and if you notice, my earthworms are kept in moss because it cleans them off and it toughens them up. So here we have blackheads. Now blackheads are the best worm and probably the best bait, hook bait you can get. There isn't anything you can't catch on a blackhead. Far sweeter than the redworm. The redworms do smell quite rank, but these are absolute peaches and the best bait you can get. Now, I dig my worm, and I dig my worm from a riverbank. So don't go digging riverbanks everywhere. But if you know a farmer, you know a stretch river, or another good one is if they're ever doing working parties on your club water, go and give a hand, do some swim digging, dig some steps down, and take your bait tub with you and collect all the worms, because worms that you dig from the bank are the worms that, when the river floods, nature ground baits all the way down the river for us. So they're exactly what the fish are looking for. Like I say, they taste a lot sweeter than the dendrons. If you notice with these, if you bust one open, it'll have like a yellow inside and smell quite unpleasant, whereas the blackheads are absolutely fantastic, and once they've been in the moss for a few days, they really do toughen up, and they will last for quite a long time. And thirdly, we haven't used them today, but an absolute fantastic bait, great for a big perch, barbel, chub, is a lobworm. Collected at night off cricket pitches, people's lawns, any sort of short grass. So on a damp night, I'm out with a head torch on, and it's a bit of a technique to learn, and perhaps we'll do something else where we actually show how to catch them. But basically, you're catching them with your finger and thumb, and then you've got to tease them out the hole, not break the worm, and if you break any, throw them away. Don't put broken worms, never put broken worms in with the rest, because they'll die and pollute your moss and the rest of the worm. So that's the three that I've been using today. So I've got lobs for those big fish. We didn't get onto the 7. If we were on the 7, I'd probably fished a couple of lobs. This time of year, I'd have been really keen, you know. That's a sort of really good bait for a chub, a big perch. It's been more about us catching lots of sort of different species and lots of little fish today, and the rivers over its banks, so there's not much point in us being on there. The dendrons that I'll chop, I'm going to chop some for you now, and the blackheads that make your perfect hook bait. Good fish as well. Well, it's absolutely brilliant. Didn't think anything was going to happen. It's good fish as well. It's a good fish. Thought we'd made a wrong choice coming here. Oh, it's a big crucian, isn't it? It's a tench. It's a tench. Wonderful. It's a tench. Oh, it's a beautiful golden tench. Mid-November. And we've got ourselves a lovely golden tench. Look at him shine in the sunlight. So as you can see today, we're trying to catch as many different fish as we can with a worm. It's a good fish. Oh, come out, come out. Yeah. Number 2. Beautiful. Shining November sun. Worm and maggot combo. Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, so that's our 7th species today. Like I keep pointing out, it is mid-November. And there's a crucian carp. Shining away in the sunshine. Look at that golden. Beautiful. Well, I'm going to spend a little longer here. Just see if I can get a bigger one. Okay, so to make the ground bait I've been using today, which I find extremely effective with worms, I've got some soil. Now this soil is from where I dug the worm. So when I say I dug the banks for worm, as I explained when I was running the float down earlier on, I'm digging the inside of bends. So where you've got a bend on the inside and just after, it's that really fertile area where all the sediment gets washed to in a big flood, and it just collects. You'll get a lot of like leaf matter there, and over the course of the season, when that breaks down, that leaves a really, really fertile soil, and I like that because for some reason they just seem to it flavours the ground bait really well. So I'm putting in soil and I'm riddling that with the Korum riddle just to take out. I'm just taking out, so I'm left with those lumps. No need for those, but then I've got my fine soil all over the top. Now that I mix with all-time favourite hemp and halibut. I absolutely love this stuff. Anybody who's watched me fish before knows I use this for everything. I don't think there's a fish that swims that doesn't like it. And the other thing is, it goes absolutely perfectly with this sort of method of mixing in some soil and then your hemp and alley. And then a little trick that I've been putting in, and this really does seem to set off that soily, fishy, wormy ground bait, is this is desiccated liver powder. So all I do is just work that through, again through the riddle, so everything's nice and broken up, nice and mixed in. Then I'm left with that lovely fine powder. That smells really earthy. That smell of liver and soil. It's got that really earthy smell that makes the worms really fish their best. So my next stage with this is, so I use bloodworm pellets. I just like these for that little bit of red fleck. Not many. A bag like that will probably last me all winter. But just a couple of tablespoons full, and it just puts that red fleck into the bait. Gives it a bit of colour. Next, this comes back to what my dendras are for. This is why I buy these, because they are absolute perfect for chopping. So I'm going to put some blackheads in with them as well. Mix them in some blackheads, because like I say, they are the best. And then my chopping scissors, bit cruel, but you will not beat some chopped worm in this ground bait. So there you go, you got your chopped worm mixed in with the ground bait. Then it's just a case of adding some water, mixing it up. Okay, so just really go sparingly when you're adding the water to this mix, because you've got soil in it, and unless you've got really dry soil, mole soil is great for it as well. That's another great way of adding that soily texture. Probably soil is about, overall, about 1/3 of the bait, 1/3 of the mix to 2/3 hemp and alley. Small amount of that pellet. Now you can really smell that wormy, earthy, livery smell coming through now. And there you have that should just bind together beautifully, letting out all those bits of worm. So that's me worm ground bait, and I'll use that for absolutely everything. I'm happy to use that for perch. I'm happy to use that on the river to feed a swim. I'm using it on a feeder here, and I'll certainly use it for a carp, barbel, bream. There isn't really a fish swimming that won't eat that. Okay, so this is almost definitely another species. It's not a bad fish actually for the brook. Little chub, or is it a decent day? Chub, I feel. So, virtually first run down, just trying to find our depth and where we can run the float down, where the snags are. We'll get ourselves a lovely little chub. That's our ace species. And we've actually found some running water that we can fish without it being up over the banks, because the rivers are absolutely out round here. This is just starting to find down. Wonderful, great start. This does hold a couple more target fish, species wise, so let's see if we can keep on with our worms and see what else has a bite. Okay, so we're using the same method I've used all along, which is the worm and maggot combo. Just like that one red maggot just to tip off that bit of worm, and I'm just pinching the end off the worm, and we're using I'm chopping dendrobinas and a mix of blackheads as bait to feed down. It's definitely a bite, but my hook bait is always a blackhead or section of blackhead, broken piece of blackhead. Ah, these got to be dace. So I'd imagine these are dace now. On the blackheads, I've dug, so they're freshly dug from a riverbank. If you're going to dig them, always dig them from somewhere where you're allowed to. There's a couple of farmers I know who I fish on their land, don't mind me. Dig in the banks, and it's best if you dig on the inside. So if we've got a right hand bend like this, or if this was a bend here, as it is, we'd be digging on this side, downstream, where all that nice fine sediment lands. Using the glide gear here, floating line, £6, just in case we do hook a big chub. Stealth line afloat. Fine line afloat, just been corrected. And this is only a light one, it's only 1.6 gram and a half, 1.6 grams. So pop that worm on, that's a whole worm we're using, and then I'm just going to pinch the tail off. So it gives him a bit of wriggle. And just lets those juices flood out. Look, he's actually, you want to get a close up of that because he's actually got the worm and the maggot sticking out of his mouth. He's minute, I admit, but for species number 9, it's a minnow on a worm. Okay, so I'm just going to show you now how I hook my worm. So, like I said, a blackhead that I've kept in the moss, fridged in summer, kept cool in summer. This time of year, fine just in a garage. Bank dug blackheads are far better at being kept than lobworms. Lobworms, you really have to watch those, especially in warmer weather. They'll just turn straight away, or if left in a warm car. So I'm hooking the worm just pretty much through the center, and then, as I've shown, you've probably seen me do all day, I'm just tipping the worm with a single round maggot. That's A, it helps keep the worm on, and B, I just love that bit of colour with the worm. Just adds that red bit of colour. Like you see me put the red pellet and just a few maggots in the ground bait, and then you've got the juiciest and tastiest worm that you can get, as in a blackhead, bank dug from the side of a river. So that's my hot bait. Okay, so my feeder setup's really, really simple. It's just a small cage feeder running on a bead. I've got to stop just back from it, just if I'm a bit slow on the bite. Worm, hook bait, exactly the same as I've been doing with the float. Because I'm fishing for a variety of species today, I'm not hair rigging worms. If I was solely fishing for carp, I might go through the hair rigging a worm, and to be honest, it's only really if it's a big carp. I do prefer to have a worm on the hook, and then again, as shown before, I'm using that maggot just to keep the bait on. The lovely earthy feeder mix with pieces of chopped worm there. You've got your bits of chopped worm hanging out, your hook bait sort of 10 inches from your feeder. And again, that presentation will pretty much catch anything. Certainly anything that's in this pool will take this. So incredibly so, we've managed on the feeder, on that big worm, to catch ourselves a tiny little rudd. So that puts us on 10, double figures. Species for the day, incredible. What a way to end. Never have I been so happy to catch a bream. What a fish to go out with, my friend. Okay, so just as darkness is coming, we've ended the day with a lovely bronze bream. So that puts us on 11 species and just goes to show the effectiveness in a worm, even in mid-November on a blustery day. Thanks for watching.